Hi, this is Paul Villa with the Proteus Academy, and today is Medium Form Monday. And today I wanted to talk to you about something a little different than some of our other videos, something a little more meta perhaps, and that is what I call the offense-defense paradigm, necessary but insufficient. And when I talk about the offense-defense paradigm, what am I really getting at? Well, in terms of modern high-level debate, we've rapidly transitioned towards what I call the offense-defense paradigm, whereby debates are almost exclusively judged based on the establishing of an offense differential. And while offense differentials are good, right, the ability to identify that someone has generated more offense or has more ground, has more things to vote on, or at least the more important thing to vote on, and all of that seems really good, there are certain shortcomings associated with the offense-defense paradigm because all people care about is offense or defense in the first place, and not the source or the sort of legitimacy of that offense. In the offense-defense paradigm, one of the other problems is that defense and defensive argumentation is often looked down upon, and considerations for things like stock issues are sort of cast aside. And I think that this elimination of defense has become incredibly problematic because it's put such a premium on offense that people now just claim sort of everything is a turn or everything is a reason to vote for them, right? We hear what I consider terrible arguments like every residual link to the criticism is an independent disad, right? Which makes no sense because if you had, let's say, a disad and they answered all of your impacts and uniqueness but didn't answer your link and you went for, well, the link is a disad, people would be like, no, the link's a link. But we'll get more into that in just a second. So I mentioned stock issues in that last sentence, right? That stock issues are cast aside. And in some formats of debate, stock issues aren't necessarily as prevalent, though I certainly think they should be. And so I wanted to give you a primer on what the stock issues are sort of one by one. So the first stock issue is significant harms. The affirmative has a burden of establishing what is wrong in the status quo, and as a result, why we need to affirm the resolution, right? That is why we affirm in the first place. Secondarily, we have the burden of inherency for the affirmative, and that is to say the affirmative must demonstrate that there is some barrier, whether structural or attitudinal, that has prevented their specific advocacy, their plan, their affirmative version of the topic is necessary because something has prevented it, and that it's not just going to happen tomorrow on accident. Third is topicality, which is sometimes just tied up with the idea of having a plan in the first place or having an advocacy statement. This means that you are actually affirming the topic and not something else. I think this one will be particularly important when we get more in depth on the offense-defense paradigm. Fourth is solvency. You have to demonstrate that the plan you proposed, the advocacy you proposed, actually resolves those significant harms you previously laid out, because otherwise, why are you doing it? And this is also one of the primary sources of your offense in the first place. It's what your links are going to be for your advantages. And then lastly, and this one's optional, is advantages. If you look at this closely, you'll tell there's an acronym here. I'll let you figure that one out for yourself. But that's all you really need to know on stock issues. But the sort of principle here is that if the affirmative team does not meet one of these stock issues, they should lose the debate because they haven't met their fundamental burden, right? They haven't proved something is already wrong and needs to be solved. They haven't proved that it won't be solved sort of magically in the next few days or whatever. They haven't proved that they're actually discussing the topic, and they haven't proved that their proposal will resolve those harms we previously talked about, right? These are first considerations. If they haven't done these things, it's largely irrelevant what they've done in the rest of the debate or how cool or technical or good they were. So why insufficient? Why do I say it's necessary but insufficient? I say that because I think stock issues are an important litmus test for how we should evaluate offense and how we should consider debate going forward. So, first off, I think that absent stock issues, we get into a massive problem where there is limitless offense in the debate. So what do I mean by that? If you do not have to be, let's say, topical for 1 second, right? Let's say that affirmative plans do not have to be topical, which, strangely enough, a lot of people begin to agree with these days. Then that means you can generate offense from literally anything because your proposal doesn't have to do with sort of the matter being discussed at hand, right? If we're debating, say, that the United States federal government should significantly increase its military presence in Iraq, and your affirmative is the United States will give puppies to everyone in Detroit, Michigan, that might be really cool in some senses, but it has nothing to do with the topic, and that has generated you offense as a result, right? You get to talk about why puppies are great for people's psychological health, or they make people happy, or they're just fun to have around, whatever, right? You get all of that offense, which in the ODP is a good thing for you, right? People would sort of celebrate you and be like, wow, you generated offense, but how hard was it really to generate that offense in a world where you didn't have to actually solve for a harm that is topical or just do anything? And more importantly, your opponent, obviously, is not going to be prepared to discuss the merits of giving puppies to everyone in Detroit when they've prepped for Iraq. And more importantly, even if they were ready for that, everything they did prep for Iraq, which might have been educational or nuanced or whatever, is erased from the debate. And I think that's a problem, because in a world where we only prioritize offense, it is massively important that that offense has some kind of limit for it, right? Especially for the affirmative team, because otherwise the negative team is just guessing. Secondly, I think that stock issues are important in terms of limiting frivolous theory, and this is something that's less important in modern-day public forum, obviously, because theory basically doesn't exist. But in terms of formats like Parley and Lincoln Douglas and policy, especially at the college level, there's a lot of theory right now, and a lot of this theory is what I would describe as frivolous. Now, I don't think I have a hard and fast definition for what makes one piece of theory frivolous or not. I've thought about this and I've discussed it with some other debaters. One of my good friends, Sean McKean from the University of Oregon, had a pretty good litmus test of his own for it, which was basically, one classic example is, if your theory references a specific time during a speech, it's probably frivolous, right? So if you say all interpretations must be passed within 2 minutes, the affirmative must read their plan within 30 seconds, things like that, all of those are probably frivolous theory, right? I think specification arguments outside of sort of standard ones, like if you want to read a spec, that's fine. If you want to read funding spec, I think that's a bad argument, but I can kind of understand what you're going for depending on the topic. But if you want to read something like sunset clause spec, which says that the affirmative must specify the sunset clause of their plan, I think that that's sort of frivolous theory that you're probably not really going for, and just trying to catch people off guard for something that has very little to do with the actual debate at hand. And in terms of how stock issues check back for that, I think that rooting the offense from theory as a question of stock issues is a really good way of resolving for that, right? For instance, at the NPTE this year, the theory I sort of had my kids reading as a preempt, because there was so much frivolous theory going on, was an interpretation that said something to the effect of all non-stock issue burdens asserted by the negative must be reciprocal. And what that meant was, if they wanted to read topicality against us, that's fine. If they want to say no inherency, if they want to say no solvency, whatever, all those kind of things, specification even, because that's a solvency question, that's fine. You can read those arguments. But if you want to read frivolous theory that says we must pass all plan text in 2 minutes, or blah, 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 then you have to do those same things in your speech as the negative, because otherwise you create this structural side bias that's problematic, because you can just read a bunch of nonsense theory that doesn't apply to the negative and just win the time trade-off, especially when you get to collapse the block, which in Parley is devastating because it's 12 minutes in a 5-minute final rebuttal. So yeah, I think it helps in that sense. And then the next one, which more people might disagree with, but I have found to be problematic before, is what I call forced self-negation. And I'm not sure this is quite the right word, but basically, I think stock issues, and especially topicality, are important because they prevent debates from going to a place that is, I don't want to just say uncomfortable, but I think unfortunate is a better way of putting it, right? Because if someone goes up on the affirmative, and I had this happen multiple times during my career, and sort of talks about, like, well, I'll just give you one example that happened. We had a team go up and they were reading a position about being Latinx, right? Like being Latina, Latino, Latinx, and how debate had excluded them in some ways, whether it was based on language or based on cultural difference and things of that nature. And as a result, they shouldn't have to talk about the topic and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Instead, we should talk about their personal narrative and that they should win the debate for that. Well, the problem here for me is that I am also a Latinx person, right? And as a result, I was in this situation basically required to either say, topicality, you're not topical, read long-form frameworks up to that effect, this is unfair, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or go up there and just say, well, no one should care about Latinx people, and something like that, right? In the offense paradigm, I am literally incentivized to say, you're wrong, you're lying, that's dumb, whatever. I have to say that that thing that could be deeply personal to me, potentially, is a bad thing. And I think that when debate gets personalized, we start to have a lot of issues in terms of how that potentially affects other bodies within the space and things of that nature. And I think there's probably is a space for individuals to talk about their own situation, their own personalized lives. They don't want to exclude that from the debate space. I don't think it should happen on the AF most of the time, because I think the AF has a certain burden. I think that reading those arguments on the negative resolves for a lot of those things. And I think that there's a way to do that within a policy focus or just some other kind of lens. But just basically, I think that when we focus on offense, it becomes easy to become offensive to other people. And I think that's a problem that the debate space has not largely been able to deal with, and I'm not sure that I have a solution for it, but I think that focusing on stock issues and a discussion of the topic can help us resolve those issues. Because even if you're forced to defend a resolution that you think on face is potentially racist, you can do things, you can write plans or have advantages that sort of circumvent that, or that point that out and that challenge that system. And I think that that's probably good for creativity and still good for advocacy, and doesn't require someone else to sort of negate you as a person, negate you and yourself as a result. So for all of these reasons, I think that refocusing on stock issues and not brushing them aside as something from the past, something that was developed, 100 years ago or whatever, and not getting overly focused on offense can be an important mechanism for allowing us to engage with each other in a way that is more conducive to discussion, that is hopefully safer for individuals, and in a way that's, like, honestly not so much of a waste of time. Right? I think that so much of debate, because of the way meta debate has to occur, because of the move towards efficiency and towards speed and sort of towards technique, makes it so that a lot of individuals, whether they just don't understand the material, whether they're judging, whether they're competing, feeling like they are being attacked, or like they never had a chance in the round, or that they lost because they didn't know what a sunset clause was, whatever. And that gets us away from a discussion of the topic, which to me will always be an instrumental part of what debate is about. Because while I do believe that your fundamental job is to convince the judge to vote for you, I think that it'd be pretty easy to convince the judge to vote for you if you were allowed to, bribe them or something. But that would be a poor use of everyone's time, and that instead we should focus on the topics that are given to us, sort of arbitrarily assigned to a given side, and then just see what we can do from there, and see how we can creatively leverage our personal beliefs or ethics or whatever within that context in a way that doesn't necessarily create an enemy out of the opponent or out of the judge or out of the space. So that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching.